Meet Mr. A. Every morning, Mr. A strolls into the office at 9 a.m., swiping his badge with perfect enthusiasm. He hits a few meetings, grabs coffee with colleagues, and keeps the daily buzz going. But here's the twist. Come noon, he sneaks out, heading home to wrap up his work in comfort. By around 5, he's clocked out. Mission accomplished. Mr. A has redefined the 9 to 5 in his own terms, and interestingly, this trend also has a name.
A new trend emerging in the back-to-office push, and that is coffee badging.
Coffee badging is two worlds colliding. It's employers wanting to get their workers back into the office, and employees' desire to really have more flexibility on the job. And so that's coming together in this trend of coffee badging.
Coffee badging is happening because workers are using this as a soft revolt against their return to office mandate that companies have put out. And they just badge in, have a coffee, check in with their colleagues, do some work, and then leave their office early.
Okay, y'all let me know if I'm off on this, but I don't know a single person personally who is working in corporate America or working any job, any 9 to 5 for that matter, that can go into the office for half the day and just leave whenever they want to leave without using some kind of vacation time or some kind of PTO. Y'all let me know. That's the question that I'm posing to you guys. Have you done this? Do you know somebody personally that's done this, and do you support it? Now, just some general thoughts on return to office mandates, right? I think it largely depends on the profession, on the industry, on your individual responsibilities. I don't think it's a bad thing in every industry, but in with some companies, with the way that people are going about it. For example, Amazon, right? They made it very clear that the return to office mandate that happened with Amazon earlier this year was to try to avoid directly having to lay people off. They knew there was going to be a lot of people that quit because people are starting to value their work-life balance over their salary in some instances. So we're about to get into some stats. They're about to throw some stats up on the screen. I'm gonna read those to you guys. But regardless, this coffee badging thing, this is a completely new phenomenon to me. Y'all let me know if I'm just naive. Like I said, let me know if I'm off. Let me know if this is a regular thing that people do, go into the office, mix and mingle and basically just show face and then get up out of there by noon and then clock out remotely from home, while finishing all their work. I've never heard of this before. I know a lot of people that have just general hybrid schedules where they might go into the office 2 days out of the week and work from home for another 2 days, and have the rest of the week off. That's a pretty good, pretty convenient schedule, in my opinion. But let me know if this is common. Let me know if I'm off and this is just a regular conversation that we should be having.
It is a silent protest of saying, I just want to be home.
Silent protest.
Coffee badging was a term that Owl Labs coined as part of its 2023 State of Hybrid Work report. And what we found is that employees weren't necessarily returning to the office in a traditional 8 to 5 manner 5 days a week.
Okay, here we go. So I want to take a look at a couple of these numbers. 1 in 3 workers, 33%, spend 31 to 45 minutes commuting one way. Almost half, 46%, of workers are polyworking with a side hustle or additional job, and a further 36% plan on starting one in the future. 1 in 4 workers, 25%, would be willing to sacrifice 15% of their annual salary for flexible working hours. That's real telling, and that's what I was just talking about. We're starting to see people valuing their work-life balance a little bit more than, just hitting that high number. A lot of people, 25% of people, will be willing to sacrifice 15% of their annual salary for flexible work hours. Now, we do need to have a conversation about what does flexible work hours look like, but there's a lot of validity to this. And that number is what it is because of points number 7 and number 9 here. 56% of workers said that their level of work-related stress has increased since last year. And if no longer able to work remotely, 29% of hybrid and remote workers would expect a pay increase to make up for additional costs. And in most instances, the employer doesn't really care about either of those. And then we have our main stat of the video, point number 6 that I skipped over a little bit. More than half, 58% of hybrid employees coffee badging, known as showing face at the office and then leaving. Again, I did not know this was a thing. I didn't know people even did this. Like, what for those of y'all that are really tapped in with this, that may actively be doing this, what companies, if you're comfortable with naming some companies, what companies can we expect, this kind of working arrangement at, where you can just show face and then leave and then go home? Y'all let me know in the comments below.
But they were coffee badging. Some were going in just to show face, grab a cup of coffee, say hi to some of their colleagues, maybe their boss, so that they could check the box for their company's return to office mandate. Whereas others were going into the office for different periods of time, maybe for reasons that the office offered them luxuries that the home environment didn't, which is access to technology.
Okay, that's another good point that I want to ask y'all. Do companies, okay, if you were to go Google like what Google offices look like, do companies, offering these luxury services in the office, massages, all types of, just all kinds of luxury services, is that a factor that would make you want to go back into the office more? Or do you not care about that and you want to just stay home? Y'all let me know in the comments below.
Which was meeting with colleagues or being in-person meetings.
A lot of the workplace trends that we're seeing right now are very much reflective of what's happening in the overall job market.
The overall U.S. economy is performing well, but the job market is cooling. A closer look at the monthly job creation over the past 2 years reveals the broader trend, with the labor market adding just 220.
And we had this conversation, I believe, a couple of videos ago about, the job market cooling. And the fact of the matter is that not only are employers slower to hire, we also see employees staying in their roles longer, right? And the general consensus that at this point, pretty much everybody knows, is that every 2 to 3 years, you should be looking to go either up in your company or out of the company into another role with another company that can hit the pay number that you want to hit. But with the volatility of the economy, with as rampant as layoffs are in certain industries, we're starting to see people hold on to their jobs longer out of fear.
7,000 jobs in November. Some experts note that workplace trends often mirror the job market. During the pandemic, when workers' demand was high, quiet quitting became the dominant workplace theme. But now, as the job market is tighter, particularly for white-collar jobs, coffee badging is trending.
Workplace trends reflect what's happened in the job market largely because you can tell who has the power. During COVID, the employees had the power. Employers were scared to death of losing employees, and it was a tight job market. And it was very difficult to get qualified employees in the door.
See, the thing about it, let me go back to leave this up on the screen for y'all to read. So this says, as small businesses recover from the pandemic, they face a new obstacle, finding workers. So we have this conversation about, people finding workers. This was May 6th of 2021. And I mean, was this necessarily recovering or coming out of the pandemic? I don't know. That's subjective, whatever you guys think. But the conversation that we're having is, small businesses were struggling to find workers, but now we've reached a point where, today we're regularly having conversations about ghost jobs and employers like almost leading people on. So the question, it starts to become like, where did we lose that balance?
Qualified employees in the door. These days, the employer has the power because even though the job market fundamentally is still good, it's not nearly as strong as it used to be. So employees can't job hop the way that they did 2 or 3 years ago. Right. Now, from the perspective of the employer, it's, look, we gave you your time. Now it's our time. You're going to come back to the office, and if you don't like it, you can go elsewhere.
Which is kind of crazy. Okay, so there's a lot of people who, this is a very divisive issue on the internet. There's people who try to hold others accountable for having a sense of entitlement in the workplace when it was never supposed to be that in the first place. And, you know, almost kind of a who do you think you are, like, to your job. And there's people on the other side of that believe that, you know, the worker holds all of the power in every scenario in the company. The company can't operate without the worker. So the worker needs to be treated as best as they can. Now, I lean a little bit more towards that side because, like I tell you guys, I break everything down from the perspective of an entrepreneur. Don't come for me in the comments because I say I want to be an entrepreneur. That's just me. I'm not pushing that on anybody else. I don't even think that the majority of people should even attempt to start a business because most people aren't built for it. However, in with that being my ambition, I have to learn people skills. I have to learn how to make people feel heard. I have to learn how to make people feel valued, and I have to learn how to cultivate an environment that people actually want to stay and work in. And in my opinion, there's really no downside to giving people what they want as long as the work is getting done, because that's where you start to create that environment where people actually like what they do. People actually like their job and people want to stay. And it's always going to be cheaper to retain an employee than to, you know, get out searching, having to bring a new employee in, because, you know, then you might have to have sign-on bonuses or whatever extra incentives to try to almost convince a new person to stay in the role.
If you don't like it, you can go elsewhere.
Dynamics that we saw in the labor force a couple of years ago were very unusual. The issue is that we had much fewer workers, and a lot of power had really shifted towards employees and away from employers in the workforce.
Did we really have much fewer workers during the pandemic? Y'all let me know that in the comments below.
Relationship, that's one of the reasons we saw quiet quitting, because there was just a lot of demand for workers and people weren't that worried about losing their jobs in that kind of an environment.
Well, I didn't know that's why quiet quitting was going viral, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right there, man. Y'all give me y'all thoughts about this in the comments below. This whole coffee badging phenomenon, this is real interesting. It's real interesting. Like I said, I am not privy to this. I didn't know this was a thing that was regularly going on. So let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. Like I always say, you know, I do my best to try to respond to every comment that's dropped on the channel because I do genuinely want to have a real conversation with you guys about these topics.